You know, there's an art to making a jackass character. And no, I'm not talking about online critics who think that being a jackass is a proper substitute for a personality. I'm talking about the characters in media that we consume. We certainly do have quite a few different brands of jerk on display, and while I've dipped my toes into some of the jackasses of yesteryear, I want to stress that there are other jackass characters out there that exist and are bad, other than, say,
Jesus, I shot myself! Ugh, I shot myself! Back up!
Back up!
Because I'm pretty sure people are getting sick of me bringing up Chloe Price from Life is Strange, so this will be the only time I bring up the original Life is Strange for this video. But regardless, I think it's important that we understand that there's an art to being a jackass. So, in this video, I want to talk about a few negative and positive examples of jackass characters, and how they work and how they don't work, at least for me. So let's start about one in particular.
My mistake was thinking that video games are art.
If you've been on the channel for a while, you're probably aware of my issues with YiiK. And with the game supposedly getting an update later this year, it's quite an acid trip. But hey, I'm nothing if not open-minded about people wanting to update their works. Hell, I hate DMC Devil May Cry, but with the definitive edition, they did fix the gameplay in that one. Story's still garbage though. Hell, might even bring up Dante in this and talk about that more often. Anyways, Alex.
I wanted to make a game about a guy who's like a piece of shit, unlikable character who by the end of the game has to transform. Yeah. But too many gamers, when they look at this, when they play a game, they're so used to having to identify with the character that if they play a game where the main character is unlikable or has to do some bad stuff, they immediately get triggered by it.
That was an excerpt from the developer of YiiK, Andrew Allenson, on The Dick Show. And I have to say, when I made my second video on YiiK, I got a few comments saying that the speech that was on The Dick Show, a podcast that is known to be joking around, and thus said speech was a joke as well. Which, one, that doesn't mean that directly is, and two, even if it was, there's no clarification afterwards from what I could see that it was a joke. And three, even then, I think the fact that YiiK is going through updates and there's being a new mode where you can literally tell Alex to shut up throughout the story kinda defeats that criticism right there. So, sorry, but I don't buy it. In any case, in the interview, Andrew said that Alex was supposed to grow. Well, in the original version of the game, he really doesn't. The point of Alex's character is that he's supposed to be an unlikable jackass, who grows and learns from his travels with his friends and in search for Sammy Park. Let's put all aside the controversy that was blown up way too much and how Sammy Park was based on a, well, I guess real suicide, but that's really hard to say because there's a lot of murky information about that, but that's not the point of this video. For those who don't know, the story of YiiK is that Alex, home from college, gets wrapped up into a supernatural event where a girl named Sammy Park gets taken away by weird entities. And thus, Alex dives into the supernatural world in order to find her, with a lot of 90s retrospective bait and bad internet memes.
Ooga chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga chaka.
Aside from YiiK being a slog to play with the gameplay and the overall wordiness of the characters, the problem with Alex is, well, he's empty. In order to actually have something to latch onto a jackass character, you need to have something for people to actually, want to. This can be done in several different ways. You can have the characters be extremely cool looking, like in the case of Cloudstrife from FF7, and then I just shot my credibility into, I know. You can have them be mysterious, where you unravel their past throughout their story to explain themselves, like, say, an example I'll bring up later, Goro Majima. You can have them be sympathetic, like they've gone through a tragedy that explains why they're acting the way they are today. Like N from Pokemon, who was practically brainwashed by his father. These are all characters who have jackassery traits to them, but end up being very beloved characters to their respective franchises. And of course, there's characters like Travis Touchdown. All of these are characters who can be considered jackasses to different degrees with how they're presented in their stories, but end up being extremely loved. With Alex, though, well, most of the whims are actually met. He's a spoiled brat, and really every time he's challenged on something, he gets his way. One example is when Alex is looking for a record, and when another character named Vela yells at him to stop, he doesn't do that. In fact, I even say he tries to guilt trip her too. He does the exact opposite of what she wants him to do. He continues to search for the record, and for about an hour and a half, it all leads up to Vela made the record. And this could have been found out if Alex had read the blasted record cover. So, let me put it bluntly, not only is Alex actively doing something against the wishes of one of his friends, Well, I say friend, but they don't actually hang out. But he lacks the mental faculties to read the cover of the record he's looking for. I'm fine with characters making a mistake and sometimes being stupid. That's not bad writing. But when you actively inform the audience that Alex is a college graduate for the more literary arts, and his picture's on the record sleeve, for someone who's supposed to be self-absorbed as him, you'd think he'd spend more time looking at the cover or ask,
but why?
I know I'm getting a little meta here because that's more or less an Easter egg for the soundtrack's cover art, but it's still an issue with the presentation of the game. Even if you want to say that this killing inner demons at the end of the game is a representation of him growing, it comes off far too late into the game. I'm being mean here. I really do hope that the developers of YiiK do a great job with a new update. From what I've seen on the livestream they've done so far, they did make the game a bit more visually engaging, although, and this is me being a critic and not an asshole, I know that's hard to discern, while I do appreciate the visual update to Alex's monologues and what I assume to be a skip or fast forward button, I think the problem with the monologues was the sheer girth of them. I mean, Yakuza has cutscenes that are extremely long, and most of the time they just have the characters standing around while in-game models, and people still love the Yakuza series despite that. That could be because the gameplay for the most part of the games is snappy and quick, so it balances out. At least the battle system looks like to be improved a bit in YiiK. Still, you did some cuts in the dialogue from what I've seen, I think, and if you're watching this, know that I wish you, the YiiK developers, nothing but the best. Like, it really seems they took heart to the criticism that a lot of videos that made on the game were bringing up, one in particular being the battle system. So, I'm always willing to give kudos to developers who can pick themselves up and get back into the game. And hey, you guys gave me an excuse to say, "Fuck you, Crow!" I swear, that's gonna be a catchphrase of mine this year. Ugh. But let's talk about another self-absorbed character who actually does this right.
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
Oh yeah.
I know I've stated that I greatly dislike Disney on this channel, but I still hold the more classic tales in my heart, and they can never take that away from me, no matter how many live-action adaptations they try to force down our throats. So let's talk about another character that's self-absorbed, who's full of himself, and actually managed to grow as a character. Kuzco from The Emperor's New Groove. It's shown early on that Kuzco is a spoiled brat, to the point where even his advisor, former advisor, Yzma, wants to kill him. Honestly though, thanks to the greatest character of all time, Kronk, he makes a mistake and Kuzco was turned to a llama. For most of the rest of the film, Kuzco uses Pacha, a villager whose home that Kuzco was going to destroy for a summer home and pool just to get back home. And while it's entertaining to watch the two bicker and get into hijinks, it's also showcasing Kuzco's abrasive personality. It isn't until Kuzco is humbled greatly after he goes on his own and he comes to the realization that not only does he need people in his life, but that his personality is pushing those who can help him away from him. And sure, he's still abrasive at the end of the movie, but you can clearly see that he had a development and grew as a character. And we could see it. Plus, it was still entertaining to watch Kuzco anyway. So, now we've talked a couple characters that grow. So, let's talk about a character who was designed to be cool. So
you must be the secret ingredient.
I've talked about DMC, Devil May Cry in more depth, but Dante is probably the worst characters who are trying way too hard to be cool, and does this by being the rebel without a cause. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking I dislike this Dante because he's completely different from the original Dante.
You'll be a TV mate.
And I myself actually do appreciate OG Dante. I'm not going to say that I don't have a bias here because obviously I do. The reason why Dante here doesn't work is because while they clearly try to make him look and act like the original Dante, and yes, you can see this as part of the main reason why people didn't like Dante in the first place was some radical character change, noted by the cigarette in his mouth in the trailer, but in the game, Dante is never seen holding a cig. So there's a big disconnect, and the worst part of it all is that we're meant to root for him. Like, I'm not gonna say Dante doesn't development, he does, but the development doesn't really change his personality, and it comes extremely late into the game. That's the thing with being cool. It's an old school mentality of being a jackass. A bad boy. But the thing is, with bad boy characters, you need to be able to have some sort of likable or relatable traits to them, otherwise they come off as tryhard. And even if you do it later in the story, you're probably going to burn a couple people away from it. Dante is really more sloppy, if anything. And the game portrayed him as a guy who could see past the bullshit of the world. The guy you should agree with. A rebel without a cause until he teams up with the Anonymous to slay Fox News. Or CNN, whichever news network you hate. I personally hate both. Dante comes off as a character who takes himself too seriously, and while there are moments of levity in the game, they're overshadowed by the overly abrasive attitude of Dante. I'm well aware there are plenty of people who unironically like Dante as a character, and that's fine, although that does not excuse the horrible person that you've become nowadays. And I still don't think he's a good character in that regard. But who's a good jackass character who's entertaining but is still very much loved and likable?
I will find you. And I will kill you.
Majima Garo is probably a great character who could be seen as a jackass, but a jackass with a heart of gold. Like, going back to the earlier portions of the series, Majima had his standout moments. And while at times he was seen as an antagonist, but he's got a sense of honor to him. By the way, in case you're wondering, I'm using the English dub of the PS2 original game for this. Well, I've been playing the original in my spare time and kind of wanted to use it for this. Besides, I think it's hilarious to have Mark Hamill as Majima.
This is the part where you're supposed to laugh! Laugh, you stupid motherfucker!
Of course, in later series, Majima did grow and he became much more entertaining. Although, and I suspect most people are much more familiar with his Yakuza 0 appearance, where he's a playable character and fleshed him out more, as proving that even though he wanted to be a Yakuza, he still has brighter moments. And you can see that either in the main story where he's hesitant to kill a blind girl for his chance to get back into the Yakuza, or in the sub-stories where he helps a girl who lost her father get some brightness in her day by winning her stuffed animals from a UFO catcher that fucking cheats! Deal with a guy who steals other people's pants, who oddly enough turns out to be the main villain of the second mainline game. Or helping out a purple-haired old lady who's actually pissed him off multiple times, but he still helps her out because that's what a good guy does. I think you get the point. To me, that's how you make a jackass character with a heart of gold. You still make them human. They have their flaws, sure, but they also have their golden moments. Or you could take the Sephiroth route and make them hot as all hell and have the models of them shirtless and allow fangirls to go gaga over them. I mean, why not? That seems to work for characters that don't even have a character to them, too. Oh well, I'm MangaKamen, have a nice day, and I'm gonna get roasted by people now. Bye-bye!